April, 43 BC. A 19-year-old boy named Octavian kneels in the cold mud outside Mutina, his chest heaving under a dented bronze breastplate. Behind him, 3 legions of his veteran soldiers are being systematically disarmed, their eagle standards shattered. Marcus Junius Brutus steps forward, not with a look of triumph, but with the cold, calculated resolve of a butcher. He draws a sharp Roman gladius. With one swift strike, the future Emperor Augustus is dead. The Roman Empire is strangled in its cradle. But how did a group of desperate, cornered politicians pull off this ultimate reversal? And what happens to the world when a superpower is ruled not by a single tyrant, but by 300? What if the Roman Republic never fell? What if the Senate won, and Rome remained a brutal, expansionist oligarchy forever? To understand the stakes, we have to go back 13 months. March 15, 44 BC. Julius Caesar lies dead at the base of Pompey's statue, leaking blood from 23 stab wounds. In our timeline, his assassins fled in panic, leaving a power vacuum that Mark Antony and Octavian easily filled. But in this timeline, Marcus Tullius Cicero is ready. He doesn't wait for the dust to settle. Within 6 hours of the assassination, Cicero, Rome's master orator, convenes a secret emergency session of the Senate. He doesn't offer peace. Instead, he uses Caesar's own massive treasury, containing over 700 million sesterces, to immediately buy the loyalty of the local garrisons. Think about it. If you were a Roman legionary in 44 BC, who would you march for? The ghost of a dead dictator, or the Senate offering you a lifetime of gold and prime Italian land? Let me know in the comments if you would have stayed loyal to Caesar's memory. The stakes couldn't be higher. If Cicero fails, Rome plunges into another devastating civil war. If he succeeds, the Senate retains absolute, unchecked control over 3 million square kilometers of territory. But these senators aren't heroes of democracy. They are a closed club of billionaires, determined to keep Rome's wealth in their own hands. The first turning point comes fast. Mark Antony tries to stir up the plebeians at Caesar's funeral, just like he did in our history. But this time, when Antony looks out at the crowd, he doesn't see weeping citizens. He sees 5,000 heavily armed gladiators hired by the senatorial faction, blending into the shadows. The planned riot never starts. Antony is forced to flee north with only 2 loyal legions, desperately trying to raise an army in Gaul. Meanwhile, Cicero unleashes the proscriptions. This isn't a political debate, it's a bloodbath. In the winter of 44 BC, the Senate publishes a list of 300 wealthy Romans declared public enemies. Their assets are seized, their throats are cut. The Senate has won the short-term game. They have the money, they have the legions, and they have eliminated their rivals. But in doing so, they have created a brand new monster. By relying on private mercenary armies to secure their power, the Senate has taught every ambitious general in the provinces a dangerous lesson. To keep these soldiers happy, the Senate must feed them land in gold. And Rome is running out of both. By 41 BC, the Roman treasury is empty again. The only way to prevent a massive military coup at home is to launch a war of conquest abroad. The Senate eyes the richest prize in the Mediterranean, Ptolemaic Egypt, ruled by Queen Cleopatra. If they can conquer Egypt, they can secure 50% of the Mediterranean grain supply and keep the Roman mob from starving. But Cleopatra isn't going down without a fight, and she has a secret weapon that could tear the fragile republic apart from the inside. But here is where the story takes a dark, unexpected turn. You see, we've been taught to look at the Senate as the good guys defending liberty against Caesar's tyranny. But what if their victory was actually the worst thing that ever happened to the ancient world? The Senate's plan to plunder Egypt backfires spectacularly. Cleopatra doesn't wait to be invaded. She knows the Senate's weak spot, their bottomless greed. In 40 BC, she bypasses the politicians entirely and sends her agents directly to the Roman legion station in Greece, offering every single soldier a massive signing bonus of 1,000 silver drachmas to switch sides. Just like that, her entire Roman legions mutiny, turning their weapons against their senatorial commanders. The Senate's quick-fix war of conquest instantly transforms into a catastrophic stalemate. The Roman treasury, which had just been replenished by the brutal proscriptions, is drained dry once again to pay for a war they are now losing. Wait until you see what happens when these unpaid, desperate legions finally return home in 14 AD. It is a moment of pure terror that will decide the fate of half the globe. But before we get there, let me ask you, do you think a corporate-style Senate would have been more or less brutal to its provinces than a single, all-powerful emperor? Tell me your predictions in the comments right now. For a moment, it looks like the Senate has pulled off a miracle. Through sheer financial exhaustion, they force Egypt into a humiliating peace treaty in 30 BC. The Senate proudly announces that the Republic is saved. Rome's markets are flooded with Egyptian gold, and the senators throw a spectacular 100-day festival to celebrate. But this apparent victory is an illusion. The sudden influx of Egyptian wealth triggers a massive financial crisis, causing inflation to skyrocket by over 100% in just 24 months. At the same time, the top 300 senatorial families use this newly devalued money to buy up millions of acres of farmland across Italy. They replace free Roman farmers with hundreds of thousands of cheap, conquered slaves. The loyal Roman middle class, the very backbone of the Republic's army, is completely wiped out, reduced to a starving, landless urban mob living on state handouts in the slums of Rome. And then, the bill comes due. By the year 14 AD, the Senate can no longer afford to pay the retirement pensions of its vast military. 8 veteran legions on the northern frontier, numbering over 40,000 heavily armed men, realize they have been cheated out of the lands they were promised. They refuse their orders. They turn their standards south. They march on Rome. When the rebellious legions breach the city walls, the Senate doesn't negotiate. Driven by absolute panic, the ruling oligarchs unleash the Praetorian Guard and thousands of hired gladiators into the streets. In a single, horrifying afternoon, 40,000 Roman citizens and soldiers are systematically butchered in the Forum and the Circus Maximus. The Tiber River runs thick with Roman blood, carrying the corpses of the Republic's own defenders out to the Mediterranean Sea. The Senate has survived, but they had to slaughter their own people to do it. This is the ultimate legacy of a republic that never fell. Without a single emperor like Augustus to stabilize the borders and establish the Pax Romana, there is no peace. There is only a continuous, relentless extraction of wealth by a corporate junta. By 100 AD, the Roman world is not a shining beacon of law and culture. It is a stagnant, brutal oligarchy. The provinces are treated not as parts of a civilization, but as assets to be liquidated by the top 1% of Roman families, who now control over 90% of the empire's wealth. Now, think back to that cold morning in April, 43 BC outside Mutina. We watched Marcus Junius Brutus execute the 19-year-old Octavian, believing he was saving the Republic from a tyrant's chains. But we can finally see the tragic irony of that moment. Brutus's blade didn't save Roman liberty. It destroyed the only force capable of protecting the common people from the insatiable greed of the Senate. Octavian's planned empire, for all its autocracy, would have built roads, established stable laws, and granted citizenship to millions. By killing him, the assassins didn't preserve a free democracy, they locked the Western world into 2 centuries of unchecked, predatory capitalism that eventually ground Roman civilization into dust. The liberator's sword was, in reality, the ultimate instrument of oppression. But what if the Senate's insatiable hunger for new wealth pushed them to navigate the Atlantic and discover the New World 1,000 years ahead of schedule?